All right. Looks like we've got a good amount of people in the room. I'm going to go ahead and start off. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Gabrielle Hibbert, and I'm an adjunct lecturer at the Heller School for Social Policy Management and a current Share the Mic and Cyber Fellow at New America. I will be moderating today's discussion between our two esteemed panelists. Today, we will be dividing our intersection of cybersecurity and equity, exploring the global cybersecurity landscape, strategies for helping vulnerable groups, open source intelligence in the age of AI, alongside the latest research to come out of the field. Just a note, we will reserve 10 minutes at the end of this webinar for any audience questions and participation. This webinar will be recorded and sent out to all participants as well. Lastly, make sure to follow the Racial Justice Tech Policy Institute on LinkedIn to keep up with all of our upcoming events and webinars. We would love to see you all at any future event. So before we launch into introductions, I would like to thank the Racial Justice Tech Policy Program for helping put on this event today. At the Heller School, our passion lies in advancing social justice through knowledge. We believe that every community deserves equitable access to the benefits of technology, and our program is the vehicle through which we aim to make this a reality. Our program brings together an interdisciplinary, multicultural community of scholars and tech experts who are committed to ensuring that no one is left behind in the rapidly evolving world of technology. At the Heller School, we are dedicated to making a tangible impact on the world, and we believe that our Racial Justice Tech Policy Program is a vital step toward a brighter, more just future. With that, I would love to welcome our two panelists today, Dr. Francisca, one of my colleagues at New America, and Professor Schumann of the International Business School at Brandeis. I will then introduce each of them. Fran, I would love to hear you go first and give a little bit about your background, how you got here, and what you are researching.
Hello, Gabby. Thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Boku. I'm currently a New America Share the Mic and Cyber Fellow. I have been in the technology space for 14 years, with 5 of those years specifically in the cybersecurity space, specializing in cyber threat management. And I also do have experience in academia, teaching and researching in cyber digital forensic space. I'm very passionate when it comes to giving back to my community, and I do that actively in either contributing to underrepresented communities, whether it's through serving as a mentor for different organizations, to being an ambassador, or even starting cyber organization affiliates back in Ghana, where I originally come from, to speaking to engagements or at engagements as well. Currently, I am combining my passion for OSINT and my expertise in the cybersecurity space to examine the intersection between OSINT, AI, and individuals' privacy. And here, the goal is actually to provide a valuable insights into the ethical utilization of OSINT when it comes to investigations and addressing how the impact of individuals' privacy comes to play. And so that's a little bit about myself. Thanks again, Gabby.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Professor Schumann, I'd love to hear from you.
Gabriele, thank you very much. I just understood from the chat that some people have problems to understand us, so I hope it's getting better with the time. I will speak a little bit louder. At least my neighbor will hear it as well when I talk. Gabriele, thank you very much for your time. Friend, it's great to be with you here, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm actually very much thank you, Lani. I'm very much a business guy, a different generation. You can probably see that. And I'm a banker for a good part of my life, 25 years. I'm now 20 years in consulting business. And the consulting business is focused on risk management, on fraud prevention, and naturally on cybersecurity as well. So at the same time, I'm teaching for 20 years at the International Business School. And I hope I can share with you some of my experiences, what I have seen, what went wrong, and where I maybe even myself got some issues. Okay, so I'm looking forward to the next 50, 60 minutes.
Awesome. Well, before we start on questions and really delving into the global landscape, I want to ground our conversation on cybersecurity in general. So last year, in a 2023 report, Interpol noted that cyber attacks are borderless. The internet is borderless. A lot of the technology that we use today is not defined by boundary, and its virtual nature has huge impacts on victims that are real and devastating. And I want to make note that with cybercrime in particular, it is often the most vulnerable, marginalized, and stigmatized that end up facing the greatest consequences. There was also a report last year from an esteemed technology advisor in the Clinton White House, Francis Sharples, who served within the Clinton White House, who lost around $655,000 in a tech support phishing scam. And this kind of lends an interesting kind of focus to our conversation today within the global context and our domestic context. And kind of with that, I would love to start by learning more about how you got into the cybersecurity field, how you see it changing, and what are some specific ways in which we can build greater communication between our domestic and international partners. So to kick this off, I would love to hear from Professor Schuman. What did cybersecurity look like when you first started, and how has it changed?
Okay, that's a good question. When I first started, we didn't have a computer, so we didn't have the cyber problem, right? No, actually, I decided about 6-7 years to go into cybersecurity. Why is it? I saw in business that there are many practical problems. I always say this: thieves, fraudsters, they're always trying to steal where the best they can. In the old days, they had to make a lot of efforts to steal maybe $50,000. Now they need little efforts to steal hundreds of millions. And the thieves are no longer locals, they are global. We don't even know where they are. So when you come to this, where was it many years ago? In the beginning, we didn't really worry about it as a business person as well. We said, okay, that's 50,000 here. We make enough, we make that off. But then you have stories like one of my favorite cases, Target. I like to say Target. Everybody knows Target, right? And Target, when you think about it, they had a data breach. Why did they have a data breach? Because they had a service provider who somehow tried to fix the air condition system, and this service provider, the person who didn't know very well about the air condition system of Target or Target, that person came in with their own network, with their own computer, notebook, and had a virus in there. The virus allowed them to steal 50 million credit card informations out of Target's database. So who would have thought that about whatever 10 years ago that could happen, that it's nothing to do with the computer, it had to do with the heating system. That you have a third-party provider who goes in there. And this really cost me 6-7 years ago to say, okay, I think there is a need to train people. But what does it mean to train people? It doesn't mean just to train companies to make them aware it exists. It's very important that the employees know that there are probably the weakest spots there. And even analyzing your third-party providers, they are probably part of this. So coming back, I hope I answer your question. Coming back, what was it? It was like very small, and nowadays I think it's a big issue. We have stories where billions were stolen, right? So, okay.
Yeah. You noted this interconnectedness between the HVAC system and the company and the person's computer. I think that really touches upon how easy cybercrime can manifest itself. Fran, I wonder, what did that process, your entry into the space, look like? Was it something like Professor Schuman, this kind of all-encompassing event, or was it your research interest? We would love to know.
Yeah, sure, Gabby. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, Professor Schuman has been in the space for a while. Like I mentioned, I have been in the space for just 5 years, and I just want to echo what he said, and then also add on to the fact that, like, when you look at in recent times now, just witnessing the fact that there's been a significant shift when it comes to cybersecurity, right? And this, I believe, is largely due to like the integration of artificial intelligence, which I'll be talking more about the research I'm doing. But when you look at how like AI has transformed both when it comes to the offensive side or the defensive side in the cybersecurity space, it's been significantly overwhelming. And you look at it from this angle in the sense that on the offensive side, right, there are some threat actors that are leveraging the AI to launch more sophisticated, targeted attacks, right? Making it very hard for we, the cybersecurity professionals who are either very technical or purple teamers to really understand how to combat this. But conversely, too, on the defensive side, we see AI being used to really enhance some of these threat detection and automate some of these incident responses that we are seeing. And so I feel like now or in this era, that's how the landscape is moving or has been in very recent past times. And again, just to add this, that really when you look at all of these, you're thinking more into how there's that reliance on AI also introducing so many challenges or so many adversarial attacks. A reason why, for me personally, I have decided to look into, some of these in my research, which probably I know you'll be asking more about. So.
Yeah. I think one thing that is important to come back to and note is with the change in landscape, there is the increasing sophistication of these attacks and what they may look like. And I want to come back to a bit about your background, Professor Schumann, about working in a global context. You've worked in Brazil, in the Dominican Republic. What does cybercrime look like in countries outside of the US? And how have you built resilient cybersecurity structures?
Actually, that's a good question. I would say each country has a different level of know-how. Friend talked about AI. AI is a big thing in the States right now, but talk about Dominican Republic, Brazil is probably more advanced. These countries are a little bit slower. I always like to say, when you have attacks, so the hackers, the bad people, they start to maybe in United States, but United States has resources to defend quick. Once the attacker notices that they can't get easy results anymore, since they go to other countries where they think they are lower target. And based on this one, there is a big, should I say, learning curve. Yeah, we are somehow in some parts, and I really even say Europe is way behind in the learning curve in terms of cyber attacks. They're noticing that now. Why? Because Europe is not as creative, I think. And when you talk about the other countries where I work, some countries are more nimble. Brazil, as example, I'm always impressed by this country. They are very intelligent, very bright people. They're very fast in adjusting. And that's, I think, historically driven. You might remember Brazil about 20 years ago had an inflation of over 1,000% per year. And when you have a high inflation, you lose a lot of technology. When you use a lot of technology, you decide to protect your technology. You protect data. You protect all this. So I think that's really the difference. As I want to say, there's a curve of learning, and certain countries are left behind, and these countries have to learn faster. But now I want to bring it back home to the state. Mm-hmm. The curve of learning is as well for individuals. Unfortunately, we have societies, and Gabriele, you talked before about, but we have societies which are not, they don't have the possibility to learn as much as we can. They are sitting somewhere, they have enough to do to survive the daily normal business, and they become target of the attacker because they don't have the know-how. So you can take it a big picture country, they have to learn, but even in this country, we have to learn that everybody has to understand what it means, how vulnerable they really are when they use that little phone and get hacked there. And the little phone where you have everything, the application for payments and everything. And this is something which I'm sitting on board of banks as well. We are trying to educate our customer. We're trying to educate our customer to say, you better pay attention where you put your phone. Mm-hmm. You better make sure, as example, that you don't lose your phone and your password. Okay, so that's really, like take Brazil again. They have, as example, they're advanced. They have a thing called PIX. all their money transfers, there's no checks. They don't issue a check. They have an application on the phone and they use it. What happened in the beginning? People kidnapped people with their phone to steal money, right? So they became much dangerous. Is it better today? Yes, absolutely. It's better. It's a learning curve, but we have it in this country as well.
Yeah, I think there is a interesting interplay between awareness and education as it pertains to cybersecurity measures. It's not solely based on how tight your infrastructure is, even though that is very important. There is that piece in educating consumers, educating society on how to create more resilient futures for them. And I want to bring it to Fran to talk a little bit about, as someone who also works in academia and lectures on cybersecurity, what are you teaching your students about the changing landscape?
Well, yeah, good question. So I think one of the things that I have told, whether it's my mentees or my students, is that when you think of the cybersecurity space, and this is something that I actually adapted or got from one of my friends. It's a journey, right? It's a journey. It's not a one-stop shop where you think you're doing this today and that's it. And so for my students or for my mentees or for anyone that I come into contact with, I tell them as much as you can, because it's a journey, because the space is fast growing, fast evolving. You want to make sure you're on top of your game. You want to make sure that you're staying up to date. You want to make sure you're educating yourself or you're being aware of some of these attacks or some of these ways that you can practice. In essence, being your own cyber hygienist, right? And this comes from understanding the space, understanding what's happening within the space and wanting to have a part or partake in what's ongoing.
I like that term, cyber hygienist. I think that's something that's going to stick with me and hopefully our audience members. But I think the one thing that we haven't really talked about is the interplay of data privacy and privacy laws and their influence within the cybersecurity landscape. For those that don't know, a lot of the data privacy laws in place, particularly some of the more famous ones, such as the EU's General Data Protection Regulation or the GDPR, govern a lot of the retention, use, and transfer of personal data. And I want to kind of tease apart the interplay between data privacy protections and the cybersecurity sector. So, Professor Schumann, I know that you work in the finance sector. How have you seen data privacy protections evolve and shape the cybersecurity sector?
Actually, yeah, I have to say it is a major issue for businesses, data privacy. And you mentioned before, we have clearly differences in different cultures, even in the United States. When you look to California, they have a very strong regulation. Massachusetts is okay. The rest of the United States, not so good. But for companies to know the data of their customer and to use them to improve customer service is very relevant, right? So our daily challenge is literally to say, okay, how much data do we use to help our customer to have a better service? And on the same time, how do we make sure that we are within compliance of the different regional areas? And this is a major challenge for businesses. Now, when you come to cybersecurity, so the first one is purely a legal question about data privacy and where do we hurt people and where is a penalty enormous for us and destroys our business or costs us a lot of fine, right? The second one, in terms of cybersecurity, it's really not different if you talk about protecting data or of your customer personal data, or if you talk about protecting your technology system as a whole. I said before, what happened in Target, that was a story which had nothing to do with the core business of Target. It had to do with the service of third provider. So I think I see the picture of a data security as part of cyber, but cybersecurity is a larger part to the whole thing. So if we do a good job in cybersecurity as a business, and watch the legal side that we protect data from customer, then I think we are probably doing well in protecting. Yeah, when we protect our whole system, we protect the data. Hopefully, it doesn't always work this way, right? And I would like, I don't know if that's a good point now to come to this. When does it not work? Because the weakest point is not necessarily that companies don't protect their data, because I think there's a lot of efforts. In my opinion, the weakest point is that the employees are not trained. They talk a thing about phishing, right? We all know what phishing is. I'm pretty sure we all have seen that already. We get phishing emails. You click on something and just suddenly the whole thing blows up and somebody gets in your database. And this is probably the biggest issue. So it's not necessarily when, as a company, we do a good job in, especially banks, in protecting data, but the individual employee might do a mistake. And I'm not blaming the employee. I'm blaming management. They need to train the people. And that's what I think.
I think you touch upon a really salient point, especially in the US context. We don't have a federal data privacy protection law. There is one that has been revived, the American Data Privacy and Protection Act, the ADPPA, but that is currently being revised and remixed. Hopefully we'll see that actually move through the House and the Senate for Americans to finally have that integrated and more federally recognized protection law instead of the patchwork of state data privacy laws that we have in place. But I think in addition to that, going back to the education aspect, employees, students definitely need to understand and learn the strategies to better protect themselves when interacting or interfacing with different types of technology. And I want to move to Fran to hear your research and work related to open source intelligence tools and the use of AI. Wondering if you could first maybe explain what OSINT is for those that may not know what it is, and then further discuss your research.
Sure, Gabby. So on a high level, right, when we talk of OSINT, you're thinking of open source or openly available information that is publicly available, right? And you getting sources of information or collecting sources of information from these places. So it spans out. It could be from the web. It could be, online. It could be different avenues. There's social media OSINT. There's, dark web OSINT, human intelligence OSINT. But really, as individuals collect this data or as they collect this information from all these publicly available sources, they are going to analyze them ultimately and try to process them to make sure that, there's some form of intelligence they're drawing from it, right? And here, personally, with the research work that I'm doing, I actually see, data that is being gathered. It could be corporate data, it could be personal data. And for me, my interest aligns so much with the personal data because you're thinking of ultimately what I'm trying to do. And my research is focusing on coming up with an OSINT privacy preserving impact framework, right? What do we mean by that? For a couple of months that I've been researching into this, I have had the opportunity to look at the practice since it started based on some literature that I've done. And also, I am not neglecting the fact that there is some instance of OSINT and privacy that was existing before I started. But the way I understand the intersection here is like, how well have we put controls in place to be able to help such that people's or individuals' privacy is not infringed or it's not violated, right? And so you're looking at things like, controls during pre-implementation, during implementation, or even post-implementation. And one of the things I want to mention is the fact that, when it comes to the relevance of my research or the relevance of what I'm researching into, the current findings is interesting because it would interest you to know that, based on the sample size that I have and the information I've gathered from some of the surveys, 0% have not seen or are not aware of any privacy preserving impact framework out there, right? Yet these individuals that I was privileged to interview or talk to are cyber professionals, right? And so here we can say that the intersection actually, from my perspective, is seeing it from a very theoretical standpoint and just in books and not the practicality of it, right? And so the reason why I always say I find my work so significant in this era. One of the other things that I want to highlight too is the fact that when you think of even artificial intelligence and how it's kind of exacerbating or expanding on our privacy concerns and the speed at which, we don't have to pretend about the fact that this is actually overwhelming. This is going to impact whether individuals in the governance, in the risk sector, in the compliance sector, right? So for me, thinking about this, it's more like, we need to start developing some of these frameworks so that we'll be able to understand the work that needs to go into when artificial intelligence is actually being on the forefront, right? And the intersection would be thinking of right now, it's myself looking into OSINT, looking into privacy, but as it relates to AI, there are other individuals that are researching into, AI, privacy and healthcare, AI and automation as it relates to privacy, AI as it relates to online child protection or as it relates to their privacy, right? And so that's where I actually see the highlights or the intersection, because at the end of the day, you can negate privacy, you can negate cybersecurity, you can negate AI. So it's like AI is actually sitting on top of the cybersecurity aspect versus the privacy aspect coming together. And I think we need to have some of these discussions like we're having, because really it helps us see where the intersection lies. And it actually also helps us to see the beauty in the various ongoing researches out there and what people are looking into as well.
Yeah. It's definitely important work that you're doing, and I am looking forward to reading what that framework will look like. I do want to touch upon possibly the positive use cases for using artificial intelligence in the cybersecurity sector. And I want to ask you first, Fran, do you believe that there are potentially positive use cases for using AI in the sector of cybersecurity? And why not?
If you ask me, I'll say it could go both ways, right? But you think of, for example, in terms of possible use cases, AI, I always call it like a double-edged sword, right? There's some instances where, like I mentioned earlier in my comments, that it's being leveraged for the greater good, where, defense individuals are trying to leverage it to make sure that they're being on top of their game when it comes to mitigating some of these cyber attacks and cyber incidents ongoing. And in the same way, on the other hand, there's also that aspect of the adversary trying to leverage it as well. So there are several use cases, or there are several instances that AI is being leveraged. Let me bring it home to the research that I'm doing in terms of, use cases. It would interest you to know the amount of individuals that are leveraging or using OSINT on a daily basis. Now, when it comes to finding out if individuals know of any OSINT tools that are leveraging or that they can leverage to do some of these investigations, there are. And so, again, to your question, there are use cases out there that are being leveraged. It always boils down to trying to make sure that you understand, in terms of you leveraging any tool or anything leveraging AI, what the implications are when it comes to privacy.
Yeah, I think that double-edged sword fits accurately with the potential with using AI. Professor Schumann, I would love to hear your thoughts on what you believe to be either the positive, negative, or even neutral use case for AI in cybersecurity.
Actually, as Fran said, it's everything. It's a double-edged sword, right? AI, in my opinion, opens a lot of opportunities in terms of protection as well. Data protection, any protection, and naturally has its risks, okay? But let's talk about the opportunities. Very practical, and Fran, we might want to talk about that one day. We are using AI, as a matter of fact, to improve our cybersecurity defense. Okay, we have a very intelligent software in one of the companies I'm talking about. And that's very practical now. It's a company called Darktrace, so I don't get paid to make marketing, but they're actually a UK firm. And they use AI. So they have a very intelligent AI system embedded. As soon as they see some irregular movements in terms of attack attempts, it closes the system. So there is an enormous experience how this developed. We actually worked with this company for 5 years. In the beginning, it worked very much on what they learned yesterday. That's how they adjusted the system tomorrow. And then it took 4 months to get it fixed to be protected. Now, because of AI, it's instantly. It doesn't even take. So let's say there is normally a pattern of step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And just a sudden, the pattern changes and step 3 comes before step 1 or something. AI automatically, the software is adjusting and the defense works out. I have to say, we have in one of our companies a very strong cyber defense team sitting there, run by a CISO, Certified Information Security Officer. He is doing a good job. But the way how Darktrace, this company, as many others do as well, so again, it's not marketing, how they use AI to improve the defense is impressive. That's one point. So there are very practical positive elements already. It helps us enormously. On the other side, the downside is, and that's always my example, we all know the fraudster who try to attack you. They learn 7 days a week, 24 hours, 365 days. They have nothing else to do than trying to figure out how to hack you. And AI is a super tool for them. They come in, they watch what you do, and once they see the time is ripe, they attack, right? So I think you have both sides of this word. I'm very impressed by the defense of using AI. At the same time, I'm very concerned by the possibilities AI uses for the fraudster. Bringing it back to the home of business, I think we all have to be alert of this. And I come back to my favorite point, training, training, training. Make people aware. Don't trust too much. You know, it's a little bit, I like it to my old times when we had Excel. You know, I'm an auditor as well. What is Excel? It's probably one most dangerous tool you have, because everybody thought, oh, the computer did that. It must be right. But no, it was really somehow the data was given by people. If the data is bad and is fraudulent, then naturally the output is fraudulent. And that's we had 10 years ago, we had many frauds because of Excel spreadsheet. Now we have to learn to with AI to go. And I really think research, what you do, friend, is very important, because that brings it back. We have to learn. And I tell you, we in business, there's one element I want to bring in, which I feel is very important. But we as business people are concerned about is regulators, especially as bankers. The regulators are very slow. There is a permanent conflict. Do I need more regulations or do I need less regulations? When you have more regulations, you might kill the innovation. When you have less innovation, you probably have a higher list or higher fraud rate. When you bring both together, we have to find the middle way. And I'm always concerned about the regulators, how they can deal with it, because then you have a political view. One is thinking left, the other one is thinking right, and that takes forever. But practically, we in business, and banking is a tough business, I tell you. You have millions to move around, and no hundreds of millions, and you can lose a lot. So you get concerned. And so I think we need much more aligned, again, coming back, universities, education, research, businesses. We have to train our people. Our people have to be sensitive, what powers they have to open a gate for the fraudster. And the regulators have to be aware. They have to be a little bit faster in helping to make sure we have the right frame.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting point you make about the inclusion of regulation, because at the center of all of this are the interplay of jurisdictions and legal frameworks that have the potential to, influence both the cybersecurity and privacy landscape. And having been in the world of policy development and policy research, I wonder how can we best educate policymakers and regulators on the changing landscape? I'll go to you, Professor Schumann, since you brought up this.
Okay. Actually, first, I don't think you educate politicians. Okay, so I think what we have to make sure is that we try not to take a political position, but to take a human position. And we have to make sure we talk to the politician who is willing to listen to the human problems, to the issues what businesses and customer face. And once we reach this, I think then we can do that. And I think what we do here, other events, what you have literally every day, meanwhile, you have to bring maybe even in a roundtable like this, it would be good to have a politician one day. Okay, just why not? What's wrong, right? But not necessarily only the Democrat or only the Republican. No, bring both, because is it not what we deal with? It's not all a question of communication and listening and trying to understand. Once we get there, we get a result. I'm afraid because we have elections coming up the next 6 months. 6 months, there won't be much of discussion around this because everybody wants to be reelected. So they're trying to serve their audience, and the audiences are different. And so I feel your question is a great one, but bring everybody on the table. I would love to talk with politicians about that stuff, right? And this is just what it is. It's difficult around the world. It's not here. It's everywhere.
Yes, definitely. The elections that have been going on for some time now, even though there is a huge spotlight on the US election, there have been many other elections that have taken place. Yeah. And there have been also conversations on election security and the landscape of fragmented security practices as it pertains to free and fair elections. Fran, I wonder, in your work, are there any kind of recommendations you would give to those on the policy side to better secure the election landscape?
Yeah, Gabby. So I think I'm still in the process of, building my work and coming up with recommendations and things like that when it comes to recommendations. But one thing I want to say off the top is really when it comes to, the elections in general, as it relates to, open source or OSINT, there's going to be a ton of information out there. There's going to be a ton of misinformation, disinformation. And so just a quick recommendation would be, as individuals who really want to be mindful of our privacy, or even as regulators or whoever it is, whatever information you're trying to gather online or collect online, at the end of the day, make sure that the goal will not be to infringe on somebody's individual privacy, right? And so that's one key recommendation that I can give. And then for individuals as well, whatever you're digesting from online, right? Just make sure that you're facts checking. You make sure that you're making sure you're looking into what it is that you having access to. And one of the things that, interestingly, one of my experts actually mentioned was the fact that there's going to be a lot of tools that are going to leverage AI to send out information or share some of these information. So having that disclosure, right? Having that disclosure. So whoever the organization is, whoever is leveraging that information, making sure that they are paying attention to disclosure to be able to help individuals understand what they're signing up for, what they're getting from leveraging the information or the tool to get the information is also key as well.
Definitely. And, I would be remiss to note that these attacks have been happening. In New Hampshire earlier this year in January, there was a robocall that went out using a generative voice of an election worker that was influencing the primary that was occurring. And these, again, attacks are happening, misinformation and disinformation is being spread. And I want to kind of bring it back to how we opened. What are the top 2 to 3 pieces of information that you would like our audience members to know and take with them about cybersecurity, about protecting themselves? Professor Schumann, I'll start with you.
Okay, I can give 10 probably, but I will focus on the 3. Okay, so I would say the first one is really don't be too naive. What do I want to say with this? And I want to illustrate that a little bit on a business case, which happened about 2 months ago. I don't know if you heard about that. There was like a head office is in UK again, and there was a branch is in Hong Kong, and they had a Zoom meeting. There were 5 people from UK, including the CFO, sitting, and on the other side was a finance team in Hong Kong with 3 people. And the Zoom meeting had 8 people in the meeting, right? And the CFO tells the people in Hong Kong to transfer $25 million to an account in 2 different banks in Asia. And the people in Hong Kong did that. You know what the problem was? None of the people in the UK were real, including the CFO. What was copied? There was copied the voice of the participants. Say it was copied the picture of, as we do right now, pictures were copied. And the other side thought they're all legitimate. They're all fully authorized people. How did the hacker get that? They attacked something like Zoom. They were able to enter Zoom and took pieces out of a discussion. And so I think the first point I want to say, don't be too trustworthy what you see. Figure out, and that's, I'm coming very much from the risk management side. When you think it's true, don't always believe it's true. I always say when it's too easy to believe, it's probably there is a problem. So be a little bit more critical. That's the first point. The second point is, which concerns me a lot. I mean, each of us, we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, we share all our lives and our stories. How far are you willing to go with this? Because don't be naive. Don't think, that's my first sentence, right? Don't think that the information you put in LinkedIn doesn't hunt you 5, 6, 7 years later. When you look for a job and you said, oh, I was so happy, I had a big party, I took whatever, marijuana for 6 months and I'm totally happy, and you think it's a great thing, 6, 7 years later, it hunts you. So the first point, don't just trust everybody. Don't be so naive. The second point is don't share too much information. And the third point is, which really I think, and that's what I probably give to many people, to many people, is really, educate yourself. Try to understand that, even if it sounds boring. Read this kind of research, what people like Fran are doing. Read it, understand it, even if it's difficult. And there is a side benefit of this. You know where's a shortage of finding good people? In cybersecurity. It's nearly impossible to get it. Don't think it's too boring. It's not. And again, there's so much to that's my first 3 or 4. And I hope it makes sense. But my key question is always, and don't think I'm the older generation. Actually, I love that stuff. I think it's great. That's evolution. But at the same time, I'm saying it would be nice to get a little bit less naive and don't believe everything what you see. You know, I always say if it looks too good, it's probably not right.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. Fran, do you have anything to add to Professor Schumann's points?
Honestly, I think he said it all, because I had three key things I was going to talk about, which was, awareness, education, responsibility, but he has captured it, right? The fact that you have to be aware of what's going on when it comes to the cyber and your environment, when it comes to education, making sure that you're staying up to date with everything that is going on, reading people's research, just trying to bring yourself up to speed with what's going on, right? And then responsibility. I believe strongly that cybersecurity, it's not just my, calling, or Gabby, your calling, or Eric's calling, right? We have to take ownership of it. We have to be ready to want to have a part of it, right? And so take that responsibility, which ties to what I said, and Eric said it. You have to be your own cyber hygienist, right? Because nobody is going to do that for you. And being your own cyber hygienist points back to some of the things he said. Being mindful of the things you post on social media, not living your life of social media, being careful what you share, the digital footprints you're leaving. All of these things can come back in years to, hand you. So I think that's what I have to add to it.
Definitely. And before we open it up to our audience, Professor Schumann, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. With all this, what we are saying, don't be afraid, okay? It's just continue going in internet, continue using internet, continue doing your banking business through applications. But again, be a little bit sensitive and ask the right. When you see something which looks easy, it's probably there's something wrong, okay? So that's what I'm worried about, that people get too negative feeling, don't do that. I think it's this beautiful thing, what we're living right now. I think it's great. Who would have thought 12 months ago that AI would take off as it is right now? It's unbelievable. Okay, so and it went fast. And we in business, we are very cautious. We don't use it too much. Some companies don't even allow it, but we don't even know what the people do. So train people and continue listening to that stuff.
Definitely. I think the interplay of educating, but also not being afraid to learn is a really nice spot to end on. And before we open it up to questions in the audience, I would love to figure out, how can our audience follow your work? Fran, any way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. I would say everyone feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, I want to throw that out there. When you're connecting with me, make sure you type, a short message. Let me know who you are. Let me know the fact that you joined this webinar, and that would kind of speed up the process in me accepting, right? And also, I'm still in the process of doing my analysis. So if there's anyone on here who wants to, have a one-on-one conversation and share their inputs, if you're a legal or an ethical practitioner, if you're a cybersecurity practitioner, if you're an OSINT practitioner, I'm still open to having people chime in and let me know what their thoughts are. And so please feel free to reach out and would be more than happy to hop on a call or connect with you.
Professor Schumann?
LinkedIn it is. I was just warning about the social media, and now I'm coming to, but LinkedIn is probably the only one where I really care. I don't like Facebook too much. It's maybe my age thing, but at the same time, I'm just cautious. Until recently, I didn't even took, how is that famous thing, which is now owned by Facebook. What you use, which I always forget. So you see how good I am with this one. So give me a second. I look right now. WhatsApp. Okay, I was very critical with WhatsApp. I give a very small privileged group access to WhatsApp because I'm very concerned when Facebook bought that whole thing. I said, no, that's way too dangerous. But LinkedIn is probably the best, naturally. And when you see me on the street, say hello, okay? Okay.
And I think before we actually open it up to questions from the audience, I would love to hear about the course offering that will be available soon, Professor Schumann.
Okay, actually, that's what we are doing through RJTP. And what we are doing, we will offer an 8-week course, digital training course on cybersecurity, which will have somehow some parts about artificial intelligence. But we really start up with data encryption, data security. We go on to hardware, what kind of access controls you need to hardware. So it will be a very specific course for 8 weeks. I think it will be so fairly priced. That would be, in my opinion, one of the perfect sources, naturally, to get more aware and maybe even to take a profession in that business. So the course is probably, we are working right now in the process. I'm waiting for administration a little bit, but I would say probably in 2 months or so, we can go live with this. It will be an 8-week course. We will have different sections, which is much more driven by basic know-how, but it's following a very strict academic concept. And then we will have an advanced course for next level people. So actually, everybody's welcome. Since it's over internet, it's global. No? We will try to have it around the world, and I hope, we hope very much that we got a good audience. In my opinion, this is needed. I'm very much for this. We cannot allow the bad guys to win that game, and we cannot neglect the tools we have nowadays. So let's do the right thing. Let's protect. Let's train everybody to bring everybody up, and then we will be better.
Definitely. I think that contributes to the goals of the program, is to make access to education more equitable, give people the tools to be able to learn more about cybersecurity and how best to protect themselves. While we wait for some questions from the audience, I kind of want to throw this out there to our two panelists. You know, in the beginning of the conversation, we talked about how easy and how prevalent it is to fall for cybercrime. And I would love to know, have you ever been a victim of cybercrime? And if so, what advice would you give the audience?
Should I start?
Sure.
Okay, I have a funny story going back probably 3 years or so. So because I'm flying well, I was at the airport, Logan Airport. My flight, it was one of the companies which have that name Blue in it, okay? They were delayed by several hours. Instead of leaving at 10 o'clock in the night, they left only at 3 in the morning. So I was at the airport as a good German, I go to the airport early. I was at the airport at 7 and was at the airport from 7 up to 1 o'clock before we could board the plane. And what did I do? I decided to use my hotspot on my little phone, right? Because I didn't want to connect to the airport internet, Wi-Fi, because I thought it's not secure. So it was really a funny story. So I used my phone, was really not funny, but it's now in hindsight, it's funny. So I used my phone, I connected, I was on my website, I went to my email, I did all my work. That's what you do as a good citizen, right? You work hard. I didn't really do much. I was upset. Then I went in the plane, arrived on the next country where I flew. I flew to Caribbean, Dominican Republic, as a matter of fact. I arrived there in the morning at 8 o'clock, going in the hotel, totally tired, opened my email. I see a message from my secretary and said, Eric, I transferred $76,000 to that account in Miami, to a bank in Florida. Well, what are you doing with this? I said, huh? What $76,000 did you transfer? You said you want to buy an office. Yeah, I'm going to Miami and buy an office like this without talking with anybody. This was the office manager, right? Make a long story short, somebody hacked my phone, my hotspot on my phone, impersonated me. I didn't even see that email. She got it. My name, it was written with my words. And she paid out because I said at 5 o'clock. The next morning, she got up early at 8 o'clock, she transferred the money, $76,000. How much did we lose at the end? We lost $6,000. Why? Because the bank had a rule. We were lucky. The bank had a rule not to transfer such large amount immediately. But at morning already, somebody was at the branch in Florida on that bank to pick up $6,000. Okay, so this is a story. In hindsight, I laugh. When it happened, I was totally concerned. But what did it do to me? Did it to me to say I can't use my hotspot anymore? No, I don't do that. I only watch now what I put, how I use my hotspot. That's one thing. The second thing, what I did not have the right controls in my company. It cannot be that I send out an email, not tested, not password protected, to say pay out $76,000. Why did you even pay? Naturally, I couldn't blame the office manager because that's how we dealt in the past. Yeah. So when you think about, is it a personal story? I think it is. Did it hurt me? Hindsight, no, because yes, $6,000 hurts, but at the end, it was not 76. It's all relative in life, right? If I had lost 76, I would probably be crying here. I would tell it different, but it was 6. So I said, okay, I saved 70. So yes, again, it goes back to my point. I was naive and I didn't protect on the next level, right? And this, I think, where you learn hard. I probably could go on for a while with other stories, but that was the biggest.
Yeah, I think it does touch upon one thing that we did not talk about is that urgency piece. With a lot of the attempts, phishing attempts, or just attempts at breaking into your personal data, is the sense of urgency that is often communicated in these forms of crime. And I wonder, Fran, if you would recommend any specific tools for our audience members to use to kind of help mitigate or protect their data when traveling or using insecure Wi-Fi?
I think Erish mentioned one. For me, I always try as much as possible to use VPNs. I know most people, well, I'm just being biased, but I know most people are always hungering for like Wi-Fi. It's like the minutes they don't have internet, the world is coming to an end. And so for me, it's not about any tools, but it's about, again, it boils down to being your own cyber hygienist. If the thing is not going to, if the sense of urgency is not there, I don't think you should be in a rush to try to log into a Wi-Fi or, things like that, right? And the very basics, like, for example, if you receive, we all do receive some of these emails in our inboxes, hey, you've won a $50 gift card from Walgreens. Hey, you've done this, click that. The basic things of just hovering your mouse over some of these links to see where the link, the actual URL is pointing to. And there are so many open source tools out there that you can use to check some of these things. One of the tools that I often leverage is there's a tool called IP Tracker Online, where you can actually do like an email header analysis. You can check the IP to see where it's coming from. You can leverage who is, ICANN. All these are free tools, Census.io. All these are free tools that you can actually use and leverage as open source tools to check to see some of these things, whether it's a scam email or whether it's somebody trying to, send you a phishing email. And so, yeah, that's one thing that I can add to it. And really, another quick thing is, we have said this, and I want to just reiterate because, of course, repetition deepens the impression, right? If it's too good to be true, about 90% of the time, there's something iffy about it. Okay, so the urgency, sometimes the sense of urgency that these scammers do have, like I always call it the audacity they have to always kind of force you or request, things and try to push you as though it's too urgent. They can't even wait. You need to read between the lines, right? Read between the lines and not fall for some of these things. So
Definitely.
And again, one quick one, Gabby, before you go.
Yes, of course.
When it comes to social media, when it comes to other applications that we do leverage, these things are not new to all of us, but it's worth mentioning. Making sure that you have your multi-factor authentication turned on, in the sense that if somebody is to try to log in or do anything, you can authenticate before, so it would prevent the person. So having that extra layer or having that is also key, right? And making sure you're not using one password for everything on your phone or every application you do use. You can leverage password managers, right? I know LastPass is there. There are other ones, the other authenticators that you can actually leverage and use as well. So
definitely. I think we are just about at time. Oh, I think I have one question.
Oh, cool.
A quick question, because I know we are at the top of the hour. Eric, you are in the banking sector, and I'm wondering, very curious about, and other sectors too, how data are encrypted and how are organizations in these industries and sectors keeping up with the evolving technology. And this is something, a whole new session.
Yeah.
I know about the data privacy laws and so on in healthcare, but I'm not so well informed about how it happens in other sectors.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Actually, this is an excellent question, and you're right.
That's another session.
That's a whole session, but I want to bring it, if we have another second, Gabriel.
Yeah,
so we'll want to bring it. It's our challenge, right? So we data science is another profession which is very important. For if it's healthcare, probably as much as banks, because healthcare, you have personal data, financial sector, you have personal data, right? And really where it comes to at the end, you have to make sure that your data, that you have three levels of data. You have the retired data, that means the data which you used the last 5-10 years, but you don't use anymore, they should be sitting somewhere in a safe where nobody can act to. That's one way of protecting. Then you have the data which is in transfer. So that means that's data which is exchanged between your organization and the customer. That deserves a different protection like in VPN, what Fran said, but that's a whole different story. And then naturally you have a third data, that's this data which is stored in your company. And at the end of the day, all three different levels require a different security level and a different protection level, okay? Yes. We call it data encryption. But again, actually you gave us just, I didn't hear your name, but you gave us a great idea for the next session, which will just focus on this, but on the other side. In the first, I would say maybe 1 or 2 weeks of our course on cyber, we will talk about this element that goes much deeper, because there is where the whole trouble starts on the data security. Super question.
My name is Shamal, and we are on the same subcommittee on this.
Oh, Shamal. Oh, great. No, but that's super. Yeah, no, it's a super question. Actually, I think it's a super question. And this will be, we have to talk a lot about this. We as bankers, we are very concerned about this. Yeah. Absolutely. We have to.
Yes. Thank you so much. Great session.
Thank you for the question. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions before we close our session for today? Ezra, it looks like you have something to announce.
Gabriele, I just have one question. I'm sure I'm going to learn more about this from Eric's course, and I have multiple questions, but I just want to raise one of those pressing questions I have about cybersecurity. So we talk about cybersecurity, cultural competence is one element to cybersecurity, and I was wondering how are cybersecurity services adapting to cultural and social norms of vulnerable and marginalized groups, and along with that, what steps can be taken to ensure that cybersecurity tools and services are culturally competent. I think this is one element that's really, overlooked. So I just want to hear from your expertise.
Definitely. I do think that having that cultural competency component to educating on any level, whether it's on data encryption, whether it's on the cybersecurity front or the privacy front, is incredibly important. I think in the research that I've done, it's best to get a baseline understanding of the context and the culture that you are going to be working within. And once you have that initial kind of understanding of the landscape, you can really scale the different components that you need to better build more resilient networks. But that's a very, very general kind of answer to your question. I wonder if either of our two panelists have anything else to add to Ezra's question on adding that cultural component to education.
If I may,
please.
And I'm not sure if I answered it. I'm coming from an example 5-6 years ago, one customer who worked company with about 8,000 people, and they were on the brink of thinking that they would be losing the whole company. Why? Because of a break into their system. And they had a culture of no concern. So they had a cyber defense team, which was a small number of people, no training, no qualification, no nothing, and they were responsible for the protecting data of, I think, over 1 million customers. And so what we did, we stepped in and we helped to strengthen that. What did we do? We changed the culture. That culture of saying, oh, we know it, and not looking to details, we said, okay, that's not the right approach. We changed it towards what I said before. We made sure we find the right people. If the people didn't have the experience, we did a training, and we went through that. And this company today, 5 years later, is one of the best companies you can find. But they probably they invested in total, maybe their budget before was $100,000, and now meanwhile it's about $2 million just for cybersecurity. And they have an SOC, which is a department just to protect, which looks like you're sitting at NASA to watch but that's really what it is. Naturally, we had to fight a lot to justify that this investment is needed. Mm-hmm. But you need only one breakage. Take that thing with Target.
Yep.
This immediately costs them, I think, $300 or $400 million. When you want to avoid to pay a penalty of $400 million, you better invest $3 million. So the cultural change, Ezra goes with this. It starts at the top, that you need senior management to support investment needed. It's not just that people think different, they have to have the right tools. And nowadays, in my opinion, there are so many good tools. And with AI, even we get so much better in the defense. However, I say already, but that's my other favorite theme, there is a next level of computing coming, okay? And this next level of computing will open another different box of worms. But that's enough now, we're way over time.
I think we have one more question, if folks can kind of hang on. Tanya,
Okay.
we would love to hear your question.
I'll raise the hand, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, Gabrielle.
No worries.
The question is to Mr. Schumann, to Professor Schumann. Professor Schumann, you were talking about investment, right? For cybersecurity, all the companies like Target. What happened to the companies that are medium, smaller sizes? They cannot afford the investment right now, especially in this economy. We are living in an economy right now, and we know how the market is acting and all this, and how you feel that these companies are looking for help, how they are going to finance themselves, how they are looking for investments for that they need.
Actually, that's a super question. Thank you, Tanya, for this. It's a very good question. Actually, it comes to the core, right? There are two stories to this. Companies hesitant to invest. It's like an insurance, a lot of money, because they say nothing happens. Once something happens, they invest. Small companies cannot afford to invest millions. That's very true. However, they have to hire the right people. And I still think, so they have to hire a consultant. And I'm not talking about for my business. I'm just talking about what they have to do. And Fran, you work in E&Y, right? So your company gets hired, you have to hire companies. On the other side, there's one basic thing what every company can do. Look what kind of basic protection you can install in your system and try to at least spend something to get the basics right and train your people. Make sure your people understand what Fran was saying before. They don't click on an email which has a document which opens the gates of your computer. So this is really the so-called phishing document is a big thing. And actually what I can suggest to these companies, they participate in the next course, which is coming in a few months, okay? Cybersecurity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we really appreciate all of your thoughts and your lovely discussion. And we hope to see you soon, either in the course or at a future webinar.
Thank you.
Gabrielle, I thank you for inviting. Thank you. You did a super job. Really appreciate, friend. It was a pleasure meeting you. Okay. And yeah, all have a good day. And everybody can celebrate that Bayern Munich won. That's right. It was not 2-0. It was only 1-0. Okay.